Okay, you're set, Arnie.
Great. Thank you, Joanne, and welcome everybody to the December 14th, 2022 meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission. I will open with the roll call. Ms. Hofstetter. You there, Helen?
Here.
Mr. Chiocchio.
Here.
Mr. Sylvain.
Here.
Mr. Haas.
Here.
Chairman Aldi is here. Mr. Haas, I will seat you tonight for the vacant seat on the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
We have no minutes to accept, so we can skip that part of our agenda. Our next regular meeting as the Planning Commission is scheduled for January 4th, 2023. So this will be our last meeting for 2022. At this time, I'll read the virtual meeting intro. This meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission is being held on Zoom as a virtual meeting. Even though this meeting is a virtual meeting, members of the public and interested parties continue to have the opportunity to be heard, to participate rather, in the meeting in a couple of different ways. You can participate via Zoom and see the audio and the video, or you can call in by phone and participate via audio only. Please be aware that we may have to mute your microphone or telephone to avoid an echo or some other background noise. Instructions on how to participate in the meeting appear on the City of Danbury website, and all of the documents and materials that apply to the matters to be discussed during this meeting, including the agenda, are also available on the City of Danbury website. As always, if you have any questions regarding how to participate in the meeting, please contact the City of Danbury Planning and Zoning Department. As a reminder, the entire meeting will be posted on and can be seen on the City of Danbury website. We will follow the posted agenda as per standard practice. If prior to the meeting, any questions or comments on agenda items were submitted via email to the Planning and Zoning Department, those comments will be read during the appropriate portion of the meeting. Finally, please remember that technology glitches sometimes do occur. Please be patient if that happens.
1 second. Hancock Hall, is that you, Ben?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Arnie. I'm sorry.
No problem, Joe. As everyone knows, tonight's meeting consists only of one public hearing. I'll read the legal notice, make a couple of comments, then I will turn it over to Sharon. Legal notice. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission of the City of Danbury will hold a public hearing in a web-based special meeting on Zoom commencing at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, December 14th, 2022, to consider the adoption of Innovate, City of Danbury 2023 Plan of Conservation and Development Plan in accordance with Section 823 of the Connecticut General Statute. In accordance with the relevant statute, a copy of the plan is available on the Department of Planning and Zoning page of the city's website, in the office of the town clerk, and is on file in the office of the Department of Planning and Zoning for public inspection. Parties and interested citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard at this time. Agenda to be posted will include instructions on how to access the Zoom meeting and view the meeting in real time on YouTube. The agenda will also include a link to the draft plan. Arnold E. Finaldi Jr., Chairman, posted on city website 28, 2022, published in the News Times on December 2nd, 2022, December 9th, 2022, purchase order number 2022-174. Before I turn it over to Sharon, just a couple of very, very quick comments. I just can't believe we are here, and I can't believe that according to my calendar, we started this process about 2 years ago, maybe over 2 years ago. I think it was September of 2020 when we put out the RFP to select a consultant to help us put together this POCD. We arrived at FHI, and I think I speak for everyone when I say we're very, very happy with that decision. We have had 2 years of meetings, and I'm proud not only of the outcome, but of the process. I think that all will agree that our process was very, very transparent. It was very inclusive, and it was very collaborative. It was very important to everyone that was a party to this transaction to solicit as much input as we possibly could from as many sources as we possibly could. I think some of you were at the Palace Theater and various other things where we tried very, very hard to listen to everyone and have everyone's ideas incorporated into this plan. I would also remind everyone that the City Council unanimously approved this plan at their meeting in November, about a month ago. So we're all very proud of the outcome. I thank personally everyone who put so much time into this POCD. We're very, very proud of it. It's a great document. And with that said, I will turn it over to Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I'm Sharon Calitro. I'm the Planning Director for the City of Danbury. And I'm very pleased to be here tonight to present Innovate, the 2023 City of Danbury Plan of Conservation and Development for public comment. The plan documents existing conditions in Danbury and provides a vision that is intended to guide the recommendations of the plan. The plan provides a foundation for policy and funding decisions and informs the zoning regulations, which, as you know, are intended to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of Danbury. POCD, in general terms, is statutorily directed under the exclusive control of the Planning Commission, and a POCD is required every 10 years. It's a blueprint for recommended future development in Danbury. And as the chairman indicated, we spent over 2 years preparing this document under my direction and the direction of the POCD Oversight Committee. And Francisco will walk you through the document and give you more details on everything in a second. But that POCD Oversight Committee consisted of 20 members, including all the members of the Planning Commission, several council members, several department heads, members of land use boards and agencies, and persons with extensive knowledge in specific subject areas. There were several opportunities for public comment, public workshops, and focus groups, and online surveys. And again, to reiterate what Arnie said, I really feel, and it was very important to the city, that this be an inclusive, open, transparent process. And I think we have achieved that. We've listened to the public, we've reviewed our resources, we've discussed our needs, we've been critical of ourselves, and we've developed an innovative plan that helps us move towards our collective vision. Also, as indicated, we received endorsement from the full City Council last month. As statutorily required, WestCog reviewed the plan and found it to be consistent with the state, both the state and regional plan. And we're here tonight to listen to comments from the public and hopefully address those comments and be in a position to take action on the plan if the Planning Commission so decides. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Francisco. He's going to take a few minutes to walk through the plan and how it's organized, and then we can open it up for public comment. I also just want to say thank you. I see several members of the Oversight Committee here on the Zoom, and hopefully they'll speak up. But I thank the whole Planning Commission and everybody on the committee for their time and everybody who's been involved in this process.
All right, well, thank you, Sharon. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, very good, very good. Francisco Gomes with FHI Studio. It's really been my pleasure to work with all of you over the past 2 years to facilitate this process. And I'm very proud of the work that we've done, and I'm very eager to provide an overview of that process for folks that have not been participating in our monthly meetings. So I have a fairly brief presentation for you. It's really focused on the process, explains the purpose of the POCD, and walks you through the organizational structure of the document. First of all, this, it takes a village, right? So we had very strong leadership on the part of the city, as directed by Sharon, Jennifer, and their planning intern, Allie. We had funding from the state, and we had a fantastic oversight committee comprised of several members that I see here tonight, and many members that contributed on a monthly basis to this process. And while FHI Studios, the prime firm, we were accompanied by some sub-consultants that provided us some expertise on the project, including RKG Associates and CH Planning. So what is a plan of conservation and development? And as Sharon mentioned, it's a statutory requirement of the state. And it's intended to guide policy and land use over the municipality for 10 or more years. While the state does require municipalities to go through this process, it's really beneficial to cities such as Danbury to go through a very meaningful process of turning over every stone, understanding where the city is, how things have changed, and what the future potentially holds, so that you can explore different ideas and potential outcomes for the future. And that's exactly what this plan has afforded us an opportunity to do. It covers a lot of ground. It covers land use, environmental resources, housing, economic development, transportation, infrastructure, municipal facilities, cultural resources, and a lot of different subdivisions of each. So let me walk you through that. As Arnie mentioned, this has been a 2+ year long process. We really started in earnest about 2 years ago. And we've had monthly collaboration with our oversight committee. The front half of the process was what we call the discovery process, with a tremendous amount of data, information collection, mapping, documentation. We phased in public engagement once we got the process off the ground with a project website and multiple other tools that I'll explain to you or describe to you. And then really the past year, we've spent actually writing the plan. So there was a lot of work that went into getting us into the position where we were ready to actually assemble the plan. And here we are now in part of the adoption phase of the work. So community engagement, as Sharon noted, it's an incredibly important process of any POCD, and it was a very important process of our work here in Danbury. And we used a number of tools. Of course, our plan is a COVID baby, so we had a lot of challenges to overcome with respect to engaging people. And regardless, we've been very successful. We conducted pop-up events, and there's a picture of Sharon there with the former mayor that engaged over 200 people in conversations about what their priorities are for the city. We conducted an online survey that had a tremendous response, over 1,200 participants with literally thousands of comments shared with us. We had both in-person and virtual workshops with almost 100 attendees from the two different forums. One of them being held at the Palace Theater, as was mentioned. And then finally, we conducted focus group meetings that were specific to topics for which we had over 50 participants. So the workshop, once again, held at the Palace Theater. We had over 50 people turn out. We conducted breakout sessions focused on topics. We had a lengthy review of our discovery and what we discovered with respect to trends in Danbury. And I think it was very informative to everyone who attended. And I know as part of the consultant team, it was incredibly valuable to us to really learn more about Danbury from Danbury's residents and stakeholders. We followed that up with a virtual workshop for people that couldn't attend in person or didn't feel comfortable attending in person. And we had a very solid discussion over the course of that workshop. And it really built upon the work that we did at the in-person workshop, which was held the prior week. And this is all roughly a year ago now. We also conducted focus group meetings on 6 different topics, and they're all written there. We did those in January earlier this year on 3 separate evenings. And we had a very good turnout for those, and with very in-depth conversations that were specific to these topic areas. So allowed us to drill down a lot deeper than the workshops alone. And finally, the survey. As I mentioned, over 1,200 participants. And here's just one of many questions that we asked people. We asked people to select the statement that best represents your thoughts about Danbury. And what we found is that in that orange bar is that most people think that Danbury should continue to grow and change, but incrementally. And that's because they really love the city, but they see room for improvement and they see opportunity. So they want to see the city move towards change but in a responsible and sustainable fashion. And that was the overall thing. And we had a difference of opinion, but generally speaking, we tended towards consistent incremental change. As I mentioned, we had a project website. It's up to this day. There's the URL right there. Everything we've produced is available on that website. Presentations, summary reports, meeting agendas in minutes, the draft version of the plan, everything's there. So if you need more information about this process, feel free to visit the website. And while community engagement was an incredible information collection tool, the plan's also data-driven. We pulled from dozens of sources of information, such as Census Bureau data, the state data, and other private sources and subscription-based databases to really gain a true understanding of where Danbury is now with respect to a lot of different metrics, such as population, school enrollment, household incomes. And more importantly, how has Danbury changed over a period of time? So we look back 5 or 10 years in some cases to understand what the trends are or what the trajectory is so we could best respond to the plan's recommendations. The plan itself is broken up into several sections. It's a very colorful and approachable plan. Everything in the way the plan is organized and the graphic design of the plan is very intentional. And it's broken up really by the major topic areas of the plan. It includes an introduction that is a bit of an executive summary. It explains the process and some of the key findings. And it's followed up with a future land use plan, which I'll talk about in a little more detail. And finally, an implementation plan. The plan's recommendations are organized around or directly support a vision. And the vision, you could read it there, is a very short and concise statement about what Danbury aspires to and the type of community it would like to be or continue to be or become. And each of the topics and the recommendations that comprise each of the topic areas directly support that vision. So for each topic, we have a goal, and that goal is comprised of strategies and actions. And the strategies are the methods by which the goal is achieved, and the actions are the specific steps that need to be taken to achieve the goals as part of a larger strategy. And then finally, there were a number of themes that emerged over the course of the plan development that crossed topic areas, and that came up in discussion and came up over and over again. And so we've identified those themes separately within the plan. So as I mentioned, the vision statement is a fairly concise statement. There it is right now. I'm not going to read it back to you. It's in the plan as well, but it really focuses on the need and desire for Danbury to be a healthy, vibrant, and sustainable place. Each of the topic areas has a goal. Land use, environmental resources. We have a fairly concise goal, which we break up into a series of strategies that explain how we will achieve that goal. And the same is true for cultural resources, housing, economic development, mobility, and services and facilities. And as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of themes that emerge, and here they are right here. There are 9 of them in total. It's sort of a Brady Bunch of themes here. Adapt, connect, expand, focus, improve, invest, partner, promote, and protect. And these are really just ideas or values, if you want to think of them that way, that are common throughout the plan. So by example, adapt can mean a lot of things. Adapt could mean adapt your economy to the COVID pandemic and to changes in the way people are working. It can mean adapt to climate change. It can mean adapt to changes in housing demand. And the same is true for the rest of these. They're applicable to many different topic areas throughout the plan. And finally, those culminate into the call to action. And the plan's call to action is innovate, which is why it's part of the plan's title. And the call to action is for Danbury to be innovative in its approach to addressing the goals of this plan as guided by the themes above and the recommendations of the plan. So while we lay out a fairly descriptive and yet concise roadmap for what needs to be done, it's really going to require the city and all of its departments and commissions and boards and other stakeholders to be innovative in the way they approach following through on the recommendations of the plan and addressing the issues and needs of the city. Future land use is an incredibly important component of any comprehensive plan, particularly so with plans of conservation and development. A future land use plan or map is a required element of these plans. And the future land use plan is intended to guide the city's process in maintaining or updating its zoning regulations. It essentially acts as the foundation for your zoning regulations to back up any sort of amendments that are made to rationalize, to justify, and to substantiate those amendments, and also acts as a guide when amendments to your zoning regulations are proposed. The Planning and Zoning Commission or the Zoning Commission should refer to the future land use plan for guidance on whether or not an amendment is consistent with the plan of conservation and development. The process of developing that plan or map really starts with taking a look at your infrastructure. The future land use plan and the state asks us to identify areas that should be designated for growth and to identify areas that should be designated for conservation. Hence the POCD aspect here, development and conservation. And so we start with taking a look at where your infrastructure is, particularly water and sewer service areas, because those are some of the most limiting or restrictive to development. So that's where we begin. We also take a look at other important aspects such as open space, environmental resources in the formation of the plan. And so Danbury's future land use plan and map, here it is right here. And we also have it available in the plan document at a zoomed in scale so you can see some more detail. It basically, in a nutshell, it directs most of the intensive development along major corridors at the center of the city, whether it be I-84, your rail corridors, or other state roadways. At the northern and southern sides or ends of the city, we basically recommend that development remain rural and primarily residential. And all the green areas in this plan are open space areas, so we bring attention to those right away. Those are either city or protected open space areas. So that's our way of kind of subtracting those out of the equation of development. So very quick, this plan directs attention to where the infrastructure is supportive of redevelopment, infill development, or more intensive development. And it describes in detail what type of development is most appropriate. Now, this plan looks a lot like the existing land use plan, a lot like the zoning plan, but it is somewhere in between in that it doesn't strictly follow the zoning districts. Rather, it prescribes maybe some more opportunities or allows for more flexibility in land use in some existing zoning districts. And in some cases is more restrictive in other zoning districts where we'd like to prioritize the conservation of land. And finally, the last component of the plan, and probably the most important, is the implementation plan or summary. And that plan takes all of the strategies and action items that are spread throughout the document, organizes them in one place, and identifies the responsible boards, commissions, departments, and other organizations that are going to need to carry this plan forward and take action on the recommendations of the plan. And we lay it all out for how exactly this works. It's comprised of, at the top, we have our goal. It's followed by strategies, then actions. At the left, we note which themes that the recommendation, whether it's strategy or action, are directly aligned with. We identify the lead entity. And in this case, for example, at the top of the screen is Department of Planning and Zoning for all three of these action items. Partners such as the Zoning Commission or DPW, and finally priority level. And we're working on a low, medium, or high. And this essentially just intended to help guide the city as to where do you need to start and where should you direct most of your focus very early on. And if you have limited resources, what is the priority? And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to turn it back over to Sharon to carry us forward.
All you, Sharon?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, thank you, Francisco. Yeah, so that's a great overview. Again, it was a long process, very informative. Many of us learned a lot during the process. And again, I thank Francisco and his team for pulling this all together, and we're ready to hear what the public has to say, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sharon. At this time, I'll ask anybody else from the public or anyone else, any other party to this meeting that wants to speak about the plan to feel free to do so. Do I have anyone?
You have Gregory Wensek from the Cultural Commission who'd like to speak.
Please, Mr. Winsek, fire away.
Hey, it's good to see many of you again. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gregory Wensek. I'm a resident and homeowner in Danbury. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Danbury Cultural Commission, addressing the innovative draft document, Cultural Resources. I am the owner and general manager of Stage Presence, a theatrical services company founded in 1974. And I've produced a number of professional small space cabarets in Danbury. I was technical director for years at the Danbury Shakespeare Festival at Richter Park. I am the co-founder and was a 10-year executive director for musicals at Richter, which is Connecticut's longest running outdoor theater. I was technical director for scores of plays and musicals throughout the greater Danbury area. My professional training was through the Performing Arts Management Institute of New York City. I've also worked in marketing services for Procter & Gamble, and I was the project manager for iHeartMedia. I'm currently employed as the coordinator for the Danbury Cultural Commission. And I'd like to address the portion of the draft report which addresses art and culture. I was drawn to the phrase on page 51, quote, "The city does not have a department, office, or staff person that is dedicated to developing, managing, or promoting these city resources," unquote. Danbury does have a commission defined by ordinance for that purpose. The Danbury Cultural Commission has been providing, developing, managing, and promoting these resources since the 1960s. The more than 55-year-old City Commission isn't listed in the report until page 59. And then there's a cultural organization. The Danbury Cultural Commission is a city commission tasked by ordinance to provide financial support, publicity, marketing, website presence, scholarships, encouragement, training, and many more services for any city artist or group who asks. The office is staffed part-time. As well as assisting groups and individuals, the commission is also engaged in producing directly, and we've produced grant awards from the state. Currently, there are 2 awards that have been granted. We produce the Danbury Multimedia Arts Gallery, which is an online arts magazine in cooperation with Western Connecticut State University. There's the Connecticut Open House Day, which is the state's annual day to promote arts tourism. Make Music Day, which is an international festival promoting citizens' music projects. And Parking Day, where a parking space is transformed into a city park open space. And I also want to highlight a few of the future projects being developed by the commission. Designs for Danbury, which is a solicitation for ideas to make Danbury a destination location. The project asks for ideas, which solicits reasons to come to Danbury. Installation of a memorial to Marian Anderson, perhaps a statue, in the city park. developing a Main Street detour. That would be a reason to get drivers off of I-84 at exit 5, come down Main Street in Danbury, and then get back on at exit 8. We'd be offering a corridor for tourists and shoppers, including historical things to do along a driving trail in the city. We're working on direct involvement with the state's Office of Film, Television, and Digital Media to increase the number of video productions and movies produced here in Danbury. Audio plays or stage readings in cooperation with Danbury High School or WCSU, and walking tours in cooperation with the Historical Society and City Center. The commission is also coordinating with City Center to help develop projects like the Sidewalk Chalk Art Day in the spring, pop-up art galleries, which would be using storefronts in the transition for visual arts, plein air art days.
Mr.
Yep.
Weinstein, if I
Yep.
may, absolutely, there's no question that the Cultural Commission has many activities that you're outlining. I'd just like you to kind of summarize it within the context of the POCD. My understanding is you'd like the Danbury Cultural Commission to be spoken about a little more elaborately in the POCD, expanded on. Is that a good summary of what your presentation is?
That's a very small part of it. I'll get right to the last two paragraphs. Does the city really need a new office going forward, or should we just bolster the current infrastructure, just improve that? Somebody in the city level is coordinating public art right now. The commission applauds doing more to enhance art and culture through the city. Danbury must grow into the 21st century if it wants to continue to lead the way as the gateway to New England. Current times require current solutions. However, sometimes it's better to build on existing foundations rather than start over from scratch. The Danbury Cultural Commission is not just another cultural and social organization. It is a city agency which for almost the past 60 years has successfully worked to, as stated on page 63 in the cultural resource goal, quote, protect, promote, fund, and encourage to act as a steward for Danbury's cultural resources, unquote. All right, and to the end of it here, the Danbury Cultural Commission thanks the Planning Commission for accepting our input into the process for preparing this draft. We did have input and we thank you for that. The Cultural Commission asks that the Planning Commission modify the draft to elevate the current work being done and, as the mayor said, to develop and conserve the city resources as it moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weinsack. Francisco, you want to just wait to hear everybody, or would you like to comment on that at the moment?
Sharon, how would you like to proceed?
Mr. Chairman, we can address that now, or we can wait and
Let's
address-
wait. Let's see if there's
Okay.
anyone who wants to speak.
Okay.
I would ask, is there any other participant who would like to speak at this time? Anyone else who'd like to speak? Anyone else in this meeting that would like to speak? Okay, I can't see everybody, so if there's somebody who has their hand up, you're gonna have to tell me.
Councilman
Mr.
Perkins.
Chairman, yeah,
Oh.
Councilman Perkins.
Go ahead, Perk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm not going to rehash everything Mr. Gomes said because he did it quite eloquently. But what I will say is that, I do support this whole entire plan. I mentioned at the city council meeting that while I was not part of the team, I did attend a lot of the different meetings. I read through all of those PowerPoint slides, listened to a lot of the audio presentations. I was a participant at the Palace Theater and was able to give some valuable input along with many other residents of the city of Danbury. The slide that popped up earlier mentioned future land use map, and all that green toward the bottom of the map, that's all my ward. And most people who know me, they know I'm big on open space and outdoor recreation. The only thing that I would like to try to pursue with the help of, some of the city departments and officials is how we can begin to approach the invasive species, trees, plants, and shrubs throughout the city. Like with any new program, it would take a level of education and information. So that's something that I would be looking for resources and some more information for. I'm not sure how deeply this conservation plan went into that aspect, but that's something that I think that we as a city need to look at in general terms. But to sum it up, it's a great document. I mentioned this to pretty much everyone I talked to. I said it to Sharon at the meeting the other night. I think Arnie was at the Palace. We had some good conversations as well. This is great for the city. So if anybody's looking for any type of history, any type of information that deals with economic development, use of city resources, growth rates, trends, I mean, this is all it. So I applaud everyone who worked on this, and let's just keep up the great work, and hopefully we can implement some of these things moving forward. Thank you, everybody. I didn't mention my name and address, Dwayne Perkins, Danbury City Council, 22 Main Street.
Thanks very much, Dwayne. We know exactly who you are, and very well stated. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak about the plan, observations, thoughts? Anybody at this time? Is that Mr. Chianese waving a hand?
That's me raising my hand.
Go ahead, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to be on the record as well, I also support this plan of conservation. I think it's very in-depth, very detailed, as with my fellow councilman, Dwayne Perkins. It's something that will continue throughout the 10 years, because it's more than just a plan of conservation. It's more of a document that could be handed out to real estate agents, more associations of condos. It could be definitely sort of like a Bible to what the city is today, what it was yesterday, and where we need to go. So it's something that really needs to be continued, not just today, but updated as we go along within the 10 years, because things change, and it's such a detailed document that you should take your hats off and be commended on it. Just the other day, I was going through my records and I pulled out the last plan of conservation, the book. It was a nice binder, and I compared that to this, and this documentation just blows it away. There's so much data in here that it's just unbelievable. And I actually learned a lot too going through it when I read it. And I commend Sharon for taking the time out to actually speak with me and go through it with me and explain it with me, and actually took my comments and incorporated it here. So she was very accommodating for those who asked. And I believe that the chairman of the Culture Commission, I think some of your comments are well spoken, and I think they will incorporate those in here, because that's the type of document this is. It's not just the planning commissions, it's the city's document, and everyone's comments to be welcomed. Again, thank you for listening to me. Again, hats off to Sharon for doing such a fantastic job.
Thank you, Ben. Well stated. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Yeah.
Or is that Mr. Gianelli?
Yes, good evening. My name is Richard Gianelli. I'm a Danbury resident. I was also part of the members of this oversight committee. I just want to say that it was 2 years of hard work, meeting every month. The end result is, I think, as many of you have mentioned, is a fantastic document. I do want to emphasize that a lot of the input in here was taken from the stakeholders in Danbury through the focus groups, the surveys, the Palace Theater interviews that we had. It's what makes this document a successful document. In addition to that, by reviewing it and listening to the comments tonight, it'll further enhance this particular document. But also, I want to mention that this is a living document. It's nothing that's going to be put in the drawer and wait 10 years from now to review. It's something that should be looked at and tweaked and changed if necessary. As we know, Danbury in the past 10 years have changed both in its population increase and its demographics. And I think this particular document has addressed all of those concerns. So I want to say I thank you for all the members on this oversight commission that participated in this. And thank you for Sharon and for Francesco for the leadership that they've given so that this can be presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gianelli. Anyone else like to comment at this time? Again, I can't see everyone from my screen, so anyone else? Well, before I just want to as chairman, emphasize a couple of things. I think Councilman Perkins, Councilman Chianese said, you know, those of us who grew up in Danbury, or perhaps whose parents grew up in Danbury, and in my case, grandparents, you know, we think we know Danbury pretty well. You know, I've been on the planning commission a long time. You know, you don't have to tell me anything about Danbury. I know it all. Well, you know what? I don't know it all. And I learned a lot from this process, a lot about the city that I grew up in and lived in my whole life. And I think everyone did. And that's really was a very eye-opening experience, particularly with housing, future housing needs, and things about the education system that I just didn't know. And I couldn't be happier to have learned more about this city throughout this process. It really worked out very well. Very surprising how much I think a lot of us learned about Danbury throughout this process. Anyone else? We have a resolution.
Mr.
Go ahead.
Chairman, can I just, before you move forward, I just wanted to address a couple of things, if we could. First, before I get to Mr. Wensick, because Francisco and I, he was gracious enough to share his comments with us today. And so Francisco and I went back and forth. We think we have we can suggest some modifications or amendments to the document that I think will be satisfactory to Mr. Wensick. If that's the case, so let me go through that. But first, just to address Dwayne's, Councilman Perkins, excuse me, comment, there is a strategy relative to getting some assistance to develop a forest management and invasive species control plan for all the city-owned property. And that's on page 171 of the document. So we've heard that. In fact, I keep getting emails from the Garden Club ladies about invasive species. So it's on, you know, on the radar. And so we included that in there with the Department of Public Works kind of as the lead agency, because Tim, who I think is on here, yeah, he is, you know, they're in charge of public services. So, you know, that would be something he and DPW would work towards. So I think that comment is covered already. And with respect to Mr. Wensick, again, thank you for sharing your comments. And you know what, Francisco, do you want to just go through the pages and the changes that we spoke about today?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And first, let me say, Mr. Wensick is an absolutely fantastic sweater. So thank you for bringing the holiday spirit with you. And thank you for your comments. They were very thoughtful comments. I just wish I had them like 3 months ago, but it's not too late. It's not too late. That's fine. And I do think your comments, some of your recommendations or suggestions will in fact strengthen our plan. And it is good to know that the Cultural Commission is more robust than the impression that I had. So with that being said, we've identified a few different sections, all within the cultural resources section of the plan, that we would like to make some amendments. And that begins with page 51 and revising the first paragraph to reference both the Cultural Commission and the Historic Properties Commission, which is, as I understand it, not quite as robust or active as your organization, but we do reference them and describe their activities in the plan. So it'd only be fair to provide you with the same kind of attention. So we intend to revise that first paragraph to read, and the final sentence of it to read, while the city has a wealth of resources, including a Cultural Commission and Historic Properties Commission, it does not have an office, a department office or staff person that's dedicated to managing those resources, which is very true. And in our discussions, my discussions with Sharon, our discussions with the Oversight Committee, with other stakeholders in the city is really interested in having dedicated staff with a budget that can really add resources to this area. And here we're talking not just the arts and cultural aspects, but also the historic resources. So we'd like to make that change just to point to the resources that we do have at the very introduction of that section. On page 56, we are interested in adding a section, a couple of paragraphs on that page. And that is basically the introductory page to some of the recommendations of the Cultural Resources Plan. And to include a description of the Cultural Commission. And here we extracted some language that you provided in your comments. And to state something, and I'm paraphrasing here, but something to the effect that Danbury's Cultural Commission is a city commission that has played an active role in supporting artists and arts organization for over 50 years. I think 55 and more. We're just using round numbers here. The commission is tasked by ordinance with providing financial support, publicity, marketing, website presence, scholarships, encouragement, training, and many more services for city artists and arts groups. The commission's office is staffed part-time, and the commission is actively engaged in soliciting state grants, coordinating with Danbury City Center on events, supporting the Danbury Multimedia Arts Gallery, and I did visit that today, and participating in events such as the Connecticut Open House Day, Make Music Day, Parking Day, etc. So I think that would provide a very nice introduction to the organization, highlight everything that it's involved with. And instead of listing it as a cultural or social organization, we just put it in its own section, similar to the way we handle the Historic Properties Commission, which is on page 54. It has its own section, its own call out. And then finally, within the recommendations of the plan, with respect to having an office or staff person, Sharon and I are agreement. It could be a department or could be a division. It could be an office. We're a little less concerned with the shape or form that takes administratively, and are more concerned with having a full-time staff person who has resources necessary to really be a liaison, not just to the community, but to you directly as a commission, in the same way that Sharon's office is currently supports and facilitates the process of the Planning and Zoning Commission and other boards and commissions. So we'd like to move forward, and we do plan on moving forward our recommendation to have a staff person. But in light of the fact that your organization is doing much of what we would like a staff person to be involved with, we'd like to be that person to be identified as someone that's supporting the work that you do. And so we would change, by example, we would change on page 63, strategy 4, action 1, to read, consider establishing a division or department of cultural affairs. And that could be within, if it is a division, it could be really within whatever appropriate department is appropriate. So I think we're going to loosen that language up to state either planning, zoning, business advocacy, or another appropriate department that would support the city's cultural commission and act as a liaison to the arts community, etc. So that's the other change that we are very willing and plan on making if it's agreeable to you.
Yeah, and actually, it's not agreeable to me. I just work for the commission, but the commissioners did ask me to come in and address that. They felt that a lot of this work is being done, and the report, the way it was originally drafted here, just looked like nobody was doing it at all. And they wanted to say, wait a minute, we're there. And so what your changes more than address that issue. The point, as I hoped I pointed out, is the commission wants to see the city grow in all of the areas, but our area of expertise is arts and culture. And whatever the commission can do to assist the city in that is exactly what we want to do.
Thank you. I'm glad we were able to come to an agreement on that. And Francisco, thank you for your editing and expansion of that particular part of the plan. I think that will make everyone happy. So thank you for that.
And I just want to jump in for just a second more. The background behind me is the old Danbury Library in 1910. I'm sitting in front of the children's section, which is now the commission office.
Very nice. Full disclosure, 248 Main Street, right next to that building, Mr. Weinsteck. I worked there for 20 years. The old brownstone right next to the old library. So I'm very familiar with it.
Excellent. Well, you're always welcome to stop by and see the painting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, folks, as you all know, I'm addressing the commission. We did receive a resolution dated December 14th, 2022. I guess we would call this a resolution for adoption.
Yeah,
of the
Mr. Chairman, you will have to close the hearing. It is a public hearing. And move it like to old business and.
Oh, I didn't ask for opposition, did I?
I think you just asked for comments in general, but you will have to close the hearing and then take action if that's what you want to do.
You're right. You see, I'm thrown out of my equilibrium now.
I know, sorry, it's a little different.
All right, okay. All right, folks. If I don't hear any other comments in favor of or against the plan, I will ask if there's anything else from staff. And if not, I will ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
Yes,
there's-
yes, Mr. Rose.
you asked for a brief interjection, and this is a point of order to Sharon and Francisco. As a member of the Oversight Committee like you and Richard, do we need to vote on any additional changes before this goes to the Planning Commission for a final vote, or are we out of it now? Are we done?
I'll take that. Paul, I think what we're going to do is we're going to close the public hearing, and then when we approve the resolution, we will approve it as amended by Francisco as per the language he suggested. So that's the process I think we'll follow to get this thing moving.
And that satisfies the statute that the Oversight Committee does not have to vote on these changes? That's all I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it doesn't have to go back to the oversight.
Okay, so we're good. Thank you.
The document is the Planning Commission's document.
I support the plan. Just put that on the record. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, commission members, unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Chairman, I'll make the motion to close the hearing.
Did you get that, Joe?
Yeah,
I think it was Mr. Kiokio.
Got it.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The public hearing is closed. Okay,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you. Now, if looking at our agenda, there's nothing under continuation, old business, new business, correspondence, other matters, or for reference only. So the only thing left to do is to take a look at the resolution, which I mentioned earlier. We have a resolution dated December 14th, 2022. It's for the adoption of the Plan of Conservation and Development, again, as amended.
Don't you
What's that?
have to move it to old business? Sharon?
yeah, you could move the item, the public hearing to old business for discussion.
I mean, if you want them to, if not, it's not, I just don't want to
Yeah,
find out after.
It's fine. Why don't you do that,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to move this to old business for discussion and possible action.
Motion made and seconded by Helen to move this item 1 to old business for discussion and possible action. Is there any
Okay.
discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, here we are. An old business for discussion and possible action, agenda item number 1. Public hearing to consider the adoption of Innovate City of Danbury 2023 Plan of Conservation and Development in accordance with section 823 of the Connecticut General Statutes. Now, I will mention that we did receive a resolution dated December 14th, 2022 for the adoption of the POCD as amended. Sharon, I don't see any need to read this into the record. Do you disagree with that?
I could read it real fast, just so
Go ahead.
anybody listening.
It's only a one pager, folks. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So it says, I'll read it. It says, whereas the charter of the city of Danbury, the general statutes of Connecticut authorize the planning commission to prepare a plan of conservation and development for the city. And whereas the planning commission has determined that such a plan is necessary to promote the coordinated development of the city and the general welfare and prosperity of its people. And whereas the city of Danbury 2023 Plan of Conservation and Development Oversight Committee a subcommittee of the Planning Commission has, with the assistance of the city's planning consultant, conducted studies, prepared, innovate the cities of Danbury's 2023 Plan of Conservation and Development, hereinafter the plan, and has presented said plan to the Planning Commission. And whereas the Planning Commission has received and reviewed the plan, and whereas the plan was referred to City Council and the Western Connecticut Council of Governments for review and comment pursuant to the General Statutes of Connecticut. And whereas the Planning Commission on December 14th held a duly noticed public hearing on the plan pursuant to the General Statutes of Connecticut and has complied with all other laws governing adoption of a plan of conservation and development. Now therefore be it resolved by the Planning Commission of the City of Danbury, Connecticut, that the Planning Commission does adopt the plan as amended during the public hearing, including all information contained therein. And be it further resolved that upon notice of said adoption in the Danbury News Times, the plan shall be effective as of January 1st, 2023. So in case on the effective, the standard practice is it becomes effective the date following publication. But since the plan is the 2023 Plan of Conservation and Development, I think it makes sense, avoids any confusion, that we just make the effective date on January 1st. We'll get it published if it gets approved.
Great. Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you.
Anything else, commission members? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution for the adoption of the POCD as amended. Motion made by Helen. Do I
Second.
hear- I'm sorry.
Kevin will second it.
Kevin seconded that.
Motion made by Helen, seconded by Kevin Haas. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Pleased to report that the resolution is approved and for the adoption of the POCD. Very, very glad. Long process. And before we go, Francisco, I know you don't live in Danbury, but the rest of us do. And I just want you to know that, you know, we live here because we love this city. We put a lot of work into it. And I honestly thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the work you did. And I want you to know it's a better city and it's got a better future because of the work you did. So thank you very, very much on behalf of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Arnie.
let me second that.
I appreciate you folks sharing that. Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you, everyone. It was a great process. Thanks everybody who's here that was on the committee and who wasn't and has been a part of this process. It's been great, and you don't do that many of them in your career. I mean, I've done a couple. I shouldn't say that, but at this level, so I'm real happy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon. And
Thank
we
you.
all-
Nice job.
It goes without saying the work that Sharon and Jennifer and Ally did on this and do on everything in the planning and zoning department. So, you know, thanks again to everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I think that was Mr. Sylvain, seconded by
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Again, thanks, everybody. Merry Christmas. Have a great holiday.